You know that feeling when you know exactly what you have to do to change into your desired self, but for some reason you just can't bring yourself to do it? You fully understand and comprehend that the only thing stopping you from becoming the person you've always ever wanted to be is action. And on top of that, you know exactly what actions you need to take and why you need to take them. Yet no matter how hard you try to force yourself, you just can't do it. Well, the truth is, it's not because you're lazy, stupid, or even weird. It's because you lack motivation. And I know this because I felt the exact same way when I was a hopeless degenerate trying to change myself. For years, I've been struggling to take action, yet all it took was one simple technique to fix my lack of motivation almost instantly. So in this video, I'll be deleting your lack of motivation by showing you the exact same technique I used all those years ago. And the name of this technique is called cognitive feedback loops, and this is basically what it looks like. So what are cognitive feedback loops? Well, in simple terms, this is basically the conceptualization of how a subconscious belief can result in a different reality. And the easiest way I could explain it is through an example. So the first thing you need to know is that this loop works in a 4-step process, and the very first step is your belief. So let's say you have a belief that I love sushi. And because you have a belief that you love sushi, then we go into step 2, which is action. Because you love sushi, you're gonna eat more sushi, and that is the action. And because you eat more sushi, we go into step 3, the reality. The reality is that you eat a lot of sushi and you enjoy it, right? And the fact that you love sushi and you enjoy it after eating it feedbacks into the belief that you love sushi. So let's say, for example, you just started to realize that you love sushi. So then the next time you eat it, the reality is that it tastes even better than you remembered, which then feedbacks back into the belief, and now you love sushi even more. And all of this basically happens subconsciously, meaning you're not aware of all of this. This all happens in your head, and to you, it's just like, oh yeah, I love sushi. I liked it, it tasted good, I like it. So then how does a cognitive feedback loop relate to a lack of motivation? Well, let's try and extrapolate the mental feedback loop onto our lack of motivation. So usually a lack of motivation comes from a belief that I can't. Because you believe I can't take action, I can't do X, I can't do Y, I can't do Z, this reflects back into reality as a lack of motivation. So in order to reverse and delete our lack of motivation, we should focus on the parts of the cognitive feedback loop that we can actually control, which are the beliefs and actions. The reason why I say we can't control the reality and we can't control the feedback is because the belief and action is what dictates the reality and feedback. So all we have to do is just change the belief, because when we change the belief, the action also changes, and if the action changes, the reality changes, and if the reality changes, the feedback changes, which then strengthens the belief. So right now, you currently have this belief that I can't take action. It's not that you don't know what actions to take, it's not that you don't want to change, it's not that you're lazy, it's just because you believe you can't. And you might not want to admit it, but this is literally what it is. You have a belief deep down subconsciously that you just can't. And this belief usually comes from a past trauma, a past influential experience, but I won't get into that because I feel like that would be a 1-hour video. But anyways, what we first have to do is to reverse this belief. So instead of I can't, say I can take the actions needed to change myself into someone that I want to be, right? So what you're doing is you're essentially creating a new feedback loop, okay? Because this is already an established feedback loop that's been feeding the belief that you can't, right? So the way we counter it is by creating our own manual feedback loop that we're aware of. And the belief that it's going to be feeding is I can take the actions that are needed to change me into the person I want to become, right? Or something along the lines of that. And then the next logical step after implanting this belief in your mind is to take the action. What action can you prove that this belief is true? And when you do that, your reality will reflect back that, hey, I actually can, which then feedbacks and then makes this belief stronger. But before that, we need to be aware of both of these loops, okay? We have the new one and we have the old one. We have to be aware of the new one and constantly feed our energy into it, meaning we have to keep on building it up, right? Yet for the old one, we want to cut it. We want to remove the feedback, okay? Because the more it feedbacks, the more strength the belief gets. And when the belief gets to a point where it's just absolute truth, then it's always going to dictate your reality. And you're never going to be able to take action because you genuinely believe that you can't. And that belief is so strong that it's almost like a law. And that's what we don't want. So we need to be aware of the old loop and cut it, right? Cut the feedback. Stop feeding this belief that you can't. It stops now, okay? Instead, we focus all of our conscious energy into the belief that I can take the actions needed to improve myself. And after you create that loop and that belief in your mind, we take the action, right? And after we take the action, it's going to reflect back into reality. And after that happens, it becomes feedback, which feedbacks and strengthens the belief that you can, right? Because at first, when you first create a loop, it's simply just a thought. You implant a thought that you can, but then a thought becomes a belief when you're able to provide evidence that is true. And the way you provide evidence is by taking action. Now, before we go into the act of taking action, it's quite ironic because you're watching this video because you can't take action, and what I'm basically telling you is you need to take action, which is not the answer you're looking for, right? So in order for this to work as intended, you need to implement something called baby steps. Because the reason why a lot of people struggle to take action isn't because they're lazy, stupid, or weird. In most cases, it's because they overwhelm themselves with so many actions at once. If you go from a chain-smoking meth addict, and this chain-smoking meth addict wants to change himself into a sober man working a 9-to-5. In that case, you wouldn't tell him to apply to a job, get clean, cold turkey, quit his meth habits, quit his smoking habits, get a place to stay, create a bank account, create an ID, create a passport, create XYZ, right? You wouldn't do all these things and you wouldn't tell him to do it all at once, right? If you realistically want him to change into a sober man working a 9-to-5 with a stable job, you would need to first break it down in baby steps. So if he's a smoking meth addict that wants to change, the first thing to do is to cut down the smoking, cut down the meth, right? And you have to do things gradually, because when you go too far and when you overstep, you're just gonna overwhelm yourself and it's gonna feel impossible, and then that's just gonna feed back into the belief that, oh, I can't change. And this is the trap, right? And this is why you genuinely believe that you can't take the action no matter how hard you force yourself. It's because the feedback loop has been looping for years, months, days. So it's good that you watched this video because now you are aware of this loop, which means you have control over it, you have power over it. So when we eventually create this new feedback loop, you need to remember to apply baby steps. So take a step as small as possible. Don't give yourself 5 different tasks. Give yourself one focused task every single day. And until you're used to taking one task every day, then you can add 2 tasks. After you're used to 2, then you can add 3 tasks, 4 tasks, 5 tasks, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, blah, blah, you get the point, right? So let's actually break this down step by step. The first step is to implement the belief that you can take the actions needed to change into the person I want to become. So right now, I want you to verbally say this word for word. I can take the actions needed to change into the person I want to become. Say that 3 times out loud right now. Now, after you've made this promise to your subconscious, to your conscious, both, the next step is to take action. But again, we want to apply baby steps. We don't want to instantly do 5 different actions. Let's just do one small action so we can actually stick to it. So if the belief is, I can take the actions needed to change, then logically we want to think what actions would reinforce this belief to be true. So for this case, it's the belief that you can take the action. So just taking any action in general towards the right step proves that this belief is true. So what we have to do is anything, any action, whether it be drinking enough water for the day, doing a cold shower, doing an ice bath, doing your homework, walking 1,000 steps, running 500 meters, running 100 meters, running a kilometer, doing 1 hour of work, doing 30 minutes of work, anything, literally anything that showcases that you can take actions. And And it doesn't matter how big the actions, how small the actions are, just you need to prove to yourself that you can take the actions needed to change yourself, right? And when you do end up taking those actions, then the reality is that you did take those actions. You said, I can take the actions, and you did take the actions, which means it's no longer just a thought, it's a belief now, it's true. And that means it's gonna feed back into the belief. Now the belief is much stronger. The next time you say, hey, I can take the actions to change, there's much more weight behind it now. Because the last time you said it, you took instant action. So when you say it the second time, it's like, oh shit, there's proof behind this statement because it's a belief. And the whole point is to do this over and over and over and over and over and over again until your lack of motivation is just gone. So all it is just changing, substituting the belief that you can't into you can, and supporting it by taking the necessary actions in order to create the reality that you actually can, which then feedbacks back into the belief, which results in you not having a lack of motivation. So just to recap, the first step is to implement the belief, I can take the actions needed to change myself into the person I want to become. Okay, write that down. Step 2 is action. Take any kind of action because any kind of action proves that you indeed can take action. And after that, the loop will do its thing and it will showcase in reality that, hey, he's not lying. He actually can take action. And then that's gonna feed back, and then it's just a matter of repeating, okay? Doing this over and over and over again. So for the action steps, the first step is to implant this belief in your head. The second step is to take any action. Walk into a gym, put on your running shoes, do your homework, do extra work, anything, literally anything. And I want you to think as small as possible, actually. Instead of thinking big, I want you to think small. What's like one small thing you can do right now, while I'm speaking right now? Do it. And once you do it, keep telling yourself, I can take the action, I can take the action. You should never say, I can't, I'm lazy, it's impossible. Never say those words ever again. Remember, we don't want to feed our energy into the old loop, because when you say those things, you're feeding energy into the old loop. We want to feed the energy into our new loop, I can. So keep saying I can. Go on Reddit, say I can take action. It's actually easy for me to take action. Lie to yourself a little bit, because it's only a lie because you haven't provided the evidence needed. All you have to do now is just provide the evidence through taking action. And it's no longer a lie. It's now a belief, it's a truth. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you delete your lack of motivation. And look, if you've been binging self-improvement content and you still haven't seen any progress, you still feel stuck, lost, unfulfilled, and you just can't seem to break the cycles and change for the life of you, click the first link in the description below and it will take you to a video where I show you how to make change fast and easy. But again, you don't have to click it if you don't want to. I'm not forcing you or anything. And also, if you want to surround yourself with like-minded people that are on the same journey to change, and even speak with me directly and attend live lessons from me, all for free, then join my community below. And yeah, that's basically it for today's video. I'll see you guys on the next one.